There were a few moments of silence as Penn climbed, hand over hand, picking each rough handhold after the other. She spoke.
By choice or
Hmm.
Gareth questioned.
your height? Is that something you worked for, or is it like genetics?
Ah, utterly out of my control, same as you. If my reading was correct.
Same for humans, yeah, much to many people's chagrin.
Do humans prefer to be shorter as well?
Quite the opposite. Traditionally, taller is preferred, though I suppose it's mostly up to individual preference.
Hmm.
So with Wylands, a shorter partner is the preference.
Well, as you say, there is individual taste. But yes, for the most part, it's been my experience.
Ooh, is there a lot of experience there? Am I about to get the download on Gareth's romantic pursuits, perhaps?
Uh-huh.
He responded dryly.
Not particularly. A few prospects here and there, perhaps, but none panned out. The most likely one turned quite sour, to be honest.
Oh no.
She tested a foothold as he continued in a mocking tone.
Oh, indeed. What rife plague is a partner turned competitor? Turns out she took exception to my choice of career.
Ooh, juicy.
Gareth eyed the phrase. Juicy? Really?
I get it. But that's a weird one to me. Anyway, yeah, I took up Dag's offer a few weeks into our courting. Thought she'd be happy for me, but she took it more as an insult.
An insult?
Mm-hmm. I told you that violent society has been travel and trade based for most of our history. For us, one's social standing is based on having employees or workers. There's a lot of importance put on your position in a hierarchy. The head of a trading company stands higher than a warehouse worker, for instance. Being the captain of a ship is respectable, especially a well-known one. But to work under another is seen as less than ideal.
So, your first mate. You have a whole ship under you other than Dag.
True, but ours is an independent operation. Even being captain would be seen more as a worker than an administrator, and I'm not even that. When she found that out, I became too far below her station to be seen with.
I see, I'm sorry. Who knows, maybe it's for the best. If she cares that much about something like that, you might not have been happy anyway.
True. I don't consider it a loss, honestly. I'll never know for sure, but I am happy here. Well, happy on the nebula, that is. I'm not very thrilled about clinging to your back as you pull us up and out of a chasm in the middle of fucking nowhere.
Did you just swear?
I might not have your looser vocabulary, but I figured the situation warranted it, no?
I suppose. And what do you mean by looser vocabulary? I'll drop you.
He noted the sarcasm and simply laughed. The two went quiet again for some time. Penn had to focus on the final stretch of the chasm wall, which had become a little more treacherous than the rest. Nevertheless, they soon came to the pine needle-covered lip. Penn held herself at the edge and pushed her shoulder up as far as she could. Gareth took the cue and scrambled off of her and away. Penn followed, hoisting herself up and over. She crawled a few feet on all fours before collapsing. With a heavy exhale, she turned over onto her back and wiped the sweat from her forehead.
Sheesh, not bad.
What?
Gareth asked.
The climb, not a bad workout. Use some muscles I've clearly been neglecting.
We can rest if you need.
Just for a minute and then I'll be good. How are we doing on time?
He looked up to the sky and then down to the data pad in his suit's arm.
Plenty of light left in the day. You know how far we have left to go?
Not too far. I can't imagine the ship got too much further before touching down.
I hope they're okay.
I'm sure.
You know, one might think you don't care much. You don't seem to be that worried.
I'm not.
That's quite cold.
He looked away from her.
I trust them to be able to handle themselves. Our job is to handle our situation, they theirs. No point in worrying, and they aren't children.
That pulled his gaze back to her. Her logic struck him. Of course he trusted Deg. Was it insulting of Gareth to worry? After all, Deg had a knack for slipping out of any predicament, and to worry almost started to sound like doubt.
They're all capable people.
Exactly.
She stretched a fist into the air and then righted herself. A quick brush off for pine needles, and she was kneeling to let Gareth back up on her back. He climbed aboard, and they were off. Conversation was sparse for a time, but after half an hour or so, something piqued Gareth's interest.
How about you?
How about me?
Any romantic conquests for the ex-soldier?
Never really had much interest, to be honest. No crushes during my childhood and no real interest after I joined up. There wasn't anyone interested in me either. Well, I suppose. Nah, never mind.
Oh no, what?
I suppose there was a pilot.
The people who fly attack craft?
Yeah. He was an arrogant ass, which I suppose is par for the course when it comes to pilots. But he just would not leave me alone. Never disrespectful, but persistent for sure. Would always try and chat me up, get me to go on a date with him. Every time he flew support for us, he'd say I owed him a drink or a coffee.
I see.
Gareth tried to conjure a face for this man. He managed some approximation of the faces he'd seen on the Yosa when they were walking to dinner. The man was grinning and laughing under a flight helmet.
Nothing came of it?
Nah, like I said, I really didn't have much interest. He was cute, I suppose, but I didn't have time to be messing around. Eventually, he got the hint. He didn't stop, but it became more of a friendly banter thing.
Gareth didn't say it out loud. She might have taken it the wrong way. But he was surprised she didn't have more suitors. It seemed to him that by both human and violin standards, her height would draw many. The thought did occur to him that perhaps she was simply being modest. As the day turned to evening, Penn altered their course to draw closer to the river. Soon enough, they were picking out a well-covered spot to make camp. The previous night had been little more than a denser bit of canopy, but this time, they managed to find a jutting piece of rock that was spacious enough. Penn followed the same routine as previous, setting up a small fire and boiling some water before wading into the river to relax. Gareth noticed more quickly this time the sounds of the forest changing. It was odd to him that, though not silent during the day, droves of creatures became active at night, most of them unseen but clearly heard. They still unnerved him, but he repeated what Penn had said the previous night. Sound was good. Silence was bad. After Penn had bed down, but before she fell asleep, Gareth asked her about food, something they'd been neglecting until now.
Are you going to be okay?
Was her first question.
I should be fine, but I was more worried about you. I've seen you eat every day on the ship, and now it's been almost 2 without anything.
It's not ideal, but we have water. I'm not sure I have a solution other than to make it to the ship if I'm being honest. I'll live. We can't be too far now.
This is Terran plant life, right? There's nothing edible around here.
If it becomes a problem, I'll just eat you.
Not funny.
You have a point, though. Maybe in the morning, I'll look around for a berry bush or something. A non-poisonous one, preferably.
She chuckled as she turned over and made to doze off. Gareth got up and started to move away from the fire. Penn turned back over.
I was kidding about...
Yeah, I know. I figured I'd go ahead and make myself useful while you sleep. Wake you up with some food.
Oh, thank you.
She said.
Yeah, I got ya.
He mimicked her phrase. She smiled and turned back over. Gareth looked around. Berries were a concept he was mostly familiar with through reading. Violin fruits were massive by comparison. It's not like they were entirely alien, but the idea of tiny fruits was odd, almost funny. He woke the data pad on his arm and started looking around for some berry bushes. It didn't end up being hard to find a variety of them. Unfortunately, every single one he found in the immediate area read as toxic. They'd be lethal for him to ingest, and while they might not kill Penn, they wouldn't be fun either. He sighed and turned further out from the camp. He was reticent to move much further from safety, but another bush caught his eye. Plump and curling around a couple of trees, it seemed to have berries on it. Gareth paused a moment but steeled himself and made his way over to it. It offered a very weird-looking fruit, dark and like a collection of tiny little bubbles. The most similar thing to it to his mind was roe. It was almost like black little dollops of fish roe. He moved to grab one but froze immediately. He hadn't noticed the face of the creature peeking out of the very bush his hand was reaching towards until just then. It had stayed perfectly still, its color blending in with the color of the bush. It was clear once he saw it, though. Furry, wide-eyed, and keen-pointed ears, Its lip curled up in a snarl to reveal sharp rows of teeth, clearly evolved for eating meat. It was silent no longer. That face, almost as large as Gareth's entire body, let loose a reverberating growl. Gareth could feel it as much as he could hear it. Time seemed frozen to him as he sat there locked in the wolf's gaze.
Hey everyone, hope you loved the video. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up and hit subscribe for more awesome sci-fi content. You can also support us by hitting the thanks button or becoming a channel member. Your generosity helps us bring you more stellar stories. Every bit counts. Thanks a bunch.